She only needed a second. Just enough time to fix her bra strap, fix her lipstick, and maybe, get that stupid piece of lettuce out of her teeth. The car windows tinted, right? No big deal. Until it moved. Until it rolled down. Until she realized she wasn't alone. And the man inside. Oh, he saw everything. What happens when your most embarrassing moment becomes someone else's favorite memory? Stick around. Things are about to get deliciously complicated. If there was a world record for starting your day at rock bottom, Ivy Quinn was determined to win it. Her alarm hadn't gone off. The hot water had cut out mid-shower. And her one and only pair of interview shoes, those once decent knockoff pumps, now had a flap in the sole that clicked with every rushed step. She bolted through the city streets, a resume folder clutched to her chest like a life raft. Her curls bounced in chaotic rebellion, and her breath came out in ragged puffs. The address on the email had better be right, because if she showed up late to another interview, she might as well start charging tourists for sad sidewalk performances. This is it, Ivy. Either land this job, or get real cozy with eviction, she muttered under her breath. As she neared the glass tower of Vibe Tech Corp, she slowed for just a second, long enough to spot a gleaming black luxury car parked right at the curb. Its tinted windows were flawless, a perfect surface for an impromptu mirror. She dropped her bag and leaned in. Okay. Just a quick fix. Her fingers fumbled inside her blouse, adjusting her bra strap with a wince. Then came the lipstick. One swipe, too much. She pursed her lips, wiped the corner with her pinky, leaned in closer. And then she saw it. A piece of lettuce. Wedged defiantly between her front teeth. No, are you kidding me? She shoved her finger in, trying to dislodge it as discreetly as humanly possible. Her reflection stared back at her like a woman on the edge. This was not how a polished future employee of a tech empire looked. And then, click. The sound was quiet, but final. She froze. The window was rolling down. Her eyes followed the descending glass in slow motion, her breath catching somewhere between her shame and her soul. Inside, sitting calmly in the leather interior like a damn perfume had come to life, was a man in a navy suit. Sharp jawline. Relaxed posture. Icy blue eyes with just enough mischief to make her stomach drop. He was watching her. No, he had seen everything. A beat of silence passed. Then he smiled. You missed a spot, he said, tapping his own front tooth. Ivy blinked. Then gasped. Oh my God, I thought the car was empty. I didn't know, God, that sounded worse, okay. I wasn't, peeping or anything, I just. Fixing your undergarments and dental hygiene. He offered, lips twitching. That's not, well yes, but, She scooped up her bag and backed away, nearly tripping over the curb. I'm late for a thing. Please delete this moment from your memory forever. Thank you. Goodbye. But before she could bolt, he leaned a little toward the window, eyes still dancing. Good luck at your thing. You're evil, she muttered, cheeks burning. Only before 10 a.m. 10 minutes later, standing in the penthouse floor of Vibe Tech Corp, Ivy tried to slow her heart rate. She smoothed her blouse, tucked in the escaped curls, and repeated her mantra, professional. Calm. Not the girl from the lettuce incident. The door opened. And in walked the man from the car. Ivy's mouth fell open. You've got to be kidding me. He smiled. Welcome to your interview. Ivy stood frozen, one heel half lodged in the office rug, the other already twitching for the exit. The air in the sleek, glass-walled conference room seemed thinner all of a sudden. The man from the car, Mr. Smirking witness to my personal humiliation, walked toward the head of the table with the ease of someone who owned the place. Because, of course, he did. No. No, no, no. Ivy's mind raced. He's the CEO. Why didn't I Google his face? Stupid Ivy. Stupid lettuce. Stupid everything. Take a seat, he said, gesturing casually. Ivy blinked. Are you sure you want someone like me that close to your windows? A laugh escaped him, low, unexpected, and warm. I'll take my chances. She sat slowly, trying to act like the last 15 minutes of her life hadn't happened. So, you're Knox Wilder. That's what they tell me. He leaned back in his chair. And you must be. Ivy Quinn. 26. BA in marketing, minor in digital media. Freelanced for some Ivy brands. Fired from a smoothie bar for allegedly breaking the blender during a spin class pun, which I need to hear more about. Her jaw dropped. You memoized my resume. I have a good memory. A deliberate pause. Especially for dramatic public performances. Okay, wow, are we really going to do this? She asked, crossing her arms. I think we already are. There was a beat of silence. And then, Ivy couldn't help it, she laughed. Fine. You know what? Yes. That was me. I adjusted my bra in the reflection of your car. I flossed with a fingernail. And I still came here, because I need this job, and no amount of mortification is going to stop me. So, unless your first question is do you routinely traumatize rich people's vehicles, I'd love to start now. Knox stared at her for a moment. No smile, no reply. Just staring. Then he opened a drawer, pulled out a notepad, and scribbled something. He slid it across the table. It read, Q1, how do you handle pressure? Ivy burst out laughing again. That's evil. You called me that earlier, he said, smirking. Seems fair. And just like that, the tension began to melt. The rest of the interview went by in a strange blur. There were standard questions about teamwork, deadlines, leadership, but each answer twisted into tangents, stories, sarcasm. She told him about pitching campaign ideas to small businesses in exchange for tacos. About arguing with a food truck owner over font sizes on his chalkboard menu. About how she'd once boosted an eco-brand's Instagram engagement by accidentally turning their composting tutorial into a viral meme. I've never met a candidate who describes branding as personality with WIF, Knox said, flipping through his notes. You're welcome, she said with a grin. That one's free. He leaned forward slightly. What do you want out of this job, Ivy? Her smile faltered, just for a second. Then she inhaled deeply and looked him in the eye. Stability, she said. And a place where I don't have to pretend to be someone else, just to be taken seriously. Silence. Again. Then Knox stood up. Her stomach dropped. This is where he politely walks me out. But instead, he held out his hand. Welcome to Vibe Tech. She blinked. Wait, seriously? Seriously? I admire your honesty. Your hustle. And your aim with lettuce. Ivy took his hand, heart pounding, head spinning. I swear I'm not usually this much of a train wreck. That's a shame, he said. Because this was the most interesting interview I've had in years. Ivy pressed the elevator button with the kind of caution reserved for bomb defusal. It was her first day at Vibe Tech. New job. New ID badge. New anxiety. Okay, no bra malfunctions. No leafy greens. No talking to shiny car windows like they're people, she muttered under her breath. The doors slid open. She stepped in, and immediately bumped shoulders with someone holding 2 iced coffees and a plant. Whoa, sorry. Ivy exclaimed, catching the pot before it tipped. You must be the new girl. The woman said brightly. She had auburn curls, perfectly coordinated glasses, and an energy like a Pinterest board come to life. I'm Lena. HR/office vibes/keeper of the snack drawer. I love you already, Ivy replied. Ivy Quinn. I'm the new marketing assistant/possible hazard. Lena laughed as the elevator chimed. Come on. Let me give you the grand tour. The office was sleek and buzzing, minimalist furniture, open spaces, and glass walls that made Ivy feel like she was walking through a giant Instagram filter. Lena introduced her to a dozen people in 5 minutes, each more stylish and intimidating than the last. Then they reached her desk, a sunny corner with a view of downtown. A welcome note sat on her keyboard. Welcome to Vibe Tech. Try to avoid scandal until at least day 3. KW. Ivy stared at it, then groaned. He did not. Oh, he absolutely did, Lena said, sipping her coffee. Then she leaned in conspiratorially. By the way, you might already be a bit of a legend. Ivy froze. What kind of legend? Lena swiped her phone, pulled up a picture of the building's mirrored windows, and pointed to a blurry figure in the reflection. Let's just say, someone across the street had a front row seat to your pre-interview. Adjustments. It's gone semi-viral on the internal Slack. Oh my god. Don't worry, your face isn't visible. Just the bra thing. And the dental maneuver. Ivy covered her face with both hands. Tell me it doesn't have a name. Miss Lettuce. No. Yes. Capital M, capital L. Some say it's iconic. Others say it's inspiring. I say it's HR material. Lena grinned. Welcome to the team, Miss Lettuce. That afternoon, Ivy did her best to ignore the amused glances from co-workers as she navigated through onboarding meetings and a never-ending stream of digital paperwork. But even as her embarrassment simmered just under the surface, she noticed something else. No one was mocking her. They were smiling. Friendly. Curious. It wasn't cruel. It was weirdly affectionate. And when she passed Knox in the hallway, him in a navy button-up, phone to his ear, looking every inch the billionaire, he gave her a subtle nod and the ghost of a smile. Miss Lettuce, he mouthed, just as he walked past. She rolled her eyes, biting back a grin. You better watch it, Mr. Vinaigrette. By day 2, Ivy had managed to avoid any fresh incidents involving produce or undergarments. Progress. She had just settled into her desk, halfway through setting up her email signature, after Googling if kind regards sounded too desperate, when her Slack pinged. Knox Wilder. Meet me in conference room A, 10 minutes. Bring your brain. She stared at the message. No greeting. No context. No emoji. Just bring your brain. Does this mean I wasn't using it before? She whispered. Lena passed by, balancing 3 color-coded folders. Ooh. He summoned you. Should I be worried? Not unless he says bring a shovel. Then run. Conference room A was minimalist and intimidating, glass walls, chrome finishes, and a smart screen already lit up with investor slides. Knox stood near the head of the table, sleeves rolled up, phone tucked under his chin. I said we'd push the beta to Q3, not burn the entire roadmap. Tell Max to stop acting like a caffeinated raccoon and just follow the plan. He hung up, finally glancing at her. Glad you came. Wasn't really a choice, was it? Ivy said, trying not to look at how absurdly good he looked in navy again. He ignored the jab and pointed to the screen. How comfortable are you with brand voice and market messaging? She blinked. Medium. Maybe spicy medium if there's guac involved. He didn't laugh. Not right away. Then he smiled. Good. You're coming with me to the investor QA. Wait, what? I've been here for like one sunrise. You're not presenting the whole deck. Just jumping in on the brand section, if the question comes up. You freelanced for half of Brooklyn. You'll be fine. I also once accidentally put a client's logo on upside down for 2 weeks, she muttered. Live dangerously. What if I screw up? Knox looked her dead in the eye. Then you screw up in front of billionaires and learn faster. She swallowed. Well, that's comforting. 10 minutes later, Ivy sat in a high-backed chair in a sleek, glass-walled conference suite, flanked by board members and Knox himself. Across the table sat 4 investors, stoic, expensive, and watching. The presentation began. Charts. Revenue. Growth trajectories. Ivy felt like a complete imposter, heart pounding so loud she was sure it echoed off the glass. Then came the dreaded question. What are you doing differently to build brand connection with younger consumers? Silence. Knox turned his head slightly. Looked at her. Just a glance. But it felt like a shove off a cliff. Ivy took a breath. Sat forward. We're not just selling a product, she began, voice slightly shaky. We're selling the feeling that this company sees them. That we get the weird, messy in-between part of their lives. No polish, no fake perfection. Just real stories, real voices, and a little bit of weird. Because weird is honest. And honest is what builds loyalty. Another beat of silence. One of the investors raised an eyebrow. You're new, aren't you? She smiled. You could say that. The oldest investor, grey hair, no smile, finally nodded. Smart move, bringing her in. Knox didn't reply, but his fingers tapped twice on the table. Almost like applause. Back in the hallway, Ivy leaned against the wall and exhaled like she'd just run a marathon. I blacked out. Did I black out? I think I blacked out. Knox stepped beside her, hands in his pockets. You didn't black out. You sure? Because I swear I just quoted myself quoting a burrito rapper. He looked at her for a long moment. Not just amused this time. Something softer. More curious. You handled pressure. Barely. That's still handling it. Ivy shrugged, trying not to blush. Guess I'm full of surprises. He started walking away, then paused. That's the thing about you, Ivy. She looked up. You keep being more interesting than I expect. The investor meeting had ended hours ago, but the buzz of it still hummed under Ivy's skin. She had returned to her desk expecting to decompress in silence, maybe scream into a granola bar, but instead, she found a note in Knox's sharp, unmistakable handwriting. Dinner? No dress code. No deck slides. Just food. 8 p.m., Marlowe's, reservation under Miss Lettuce. Ivy stared at it, debating between a scream and a full-body eye roll. She chose both. Marlowe's was one of those low-lit, wood-paneled restaurants that whispered wealth without shouting it. The kind of place where the cocktails had ingredients like smoked rosemary mist and emotional regret. Ivy arrived in her most respectable outfit, that didn't say I googled what to wear when you're poor, but pretending not to be. Knox was already seated at a corner booth, sleeves rolled up, reading something on his phone. When he looked up, he smiled, slightly but sincerely. "Glad you came." She slid in across from him. Wasn't sure if it was a trap or a reward. "Depends how you feel about duck confit." They ordered. Talked. Laughed more than they should have for a CEO and his underling. Topics bounced from awful college roommates to his first failed startup, a dating app for dog owners, Perfect Match. She giggled to her unpaid internships that paid her in tote bags and existential dread. Then came a quiet stretch. Knox took a sip of his drink, watching her. "You always this?" Guarded. She looked up, surprised. "What do you mean?" "You deflect with humor. Which is impressive, by the way. But exhausting, I imagine." She hesitated. "Better than being a sob story." He tilted his head. "Is that what you think I'd see you as?" She opened her mouth. Closed it. Tried again. "I'm 3 months behind on rent. My landlord thinks I'm ghosting him, but I'm just embarrassed. I eat canned soup more often than I admit. And this job was supposed to be my lifeline. So yeah, maybe I joke too much. It keeps me from unraveling." Knox didn't interrupt. Didn't pity. Just listened. Finally, he spoke, carefully. "There's a program at Vibe Tech for employees in transitional hardship. It's quiet, discreet. No strings." Her jaw tightened. "This is why you brought me here?" "No. I brought you here because I liked talking to you. But I'm telling you this now, because I'd hate to see someone like you burn out, just trying to stay afloat." She sat back, crossing her arms. "I don't want charity. It's not charity. It's structure. It's what a good company should do for the people it values." There was a long pause between them. Then she said softly, "You know how hard it is to say yes to help?" "Yes," he replied, equally soft. "Harder than most people think." 2 days later, she received an internal email. Subject: Employee Resource Grant, confirmed. Your support funds will be disbursed this Friday. No further action needed. At the bottom was a short note. You didn't ask. That's okay. K.W. Ivy stared at the screen, fingers trembling just slightly. Then she smiled. Just slightly. The air in Chicago smelled like rain and opportunity. Ivy pressed her forehead against the hotel shuttle window, watching the glass towers streak past in neon reflections. She hadn't flown anywhere since her cousin's destination wedding in Miami, where the closest she'd gotten to luxury was a plastic flamingo in the hotel pool. Now she was riding alongside Knox Wilder, CEO of Vibe Tech, who had just casually handed her the badge to speak on behalf of the company at the biggest tech expo in the Midwest. No pressure. You okay? Knox asked beside her, his voice low, unassuming. She turned, eyebrows raised. Do I look not okay? You look like someone trying to solve calculus with their eyebrows. She laughed, nervous, too sharp. I'm fine. Just trying not to puke. That's a solid start. Backstage at the conference center, Ivy clutched the tablet with her talking points like it was holy scripture. Knox stood beside her, calmly adjusting his cufflinks, as if his heartbeat were made of jazz and green tea. Why me? She blurted. You could have picked any senior exec to pitch this. I didn't want Polish, he said. I wanted honest. That's you. Her throat tightened. She wasn't sure why. Then a crew member called her name. The moment she stepped on stage, Something clicked. She spoke, not with bravado, but with the same raw energy she used when explaining things to people who didn't want to be sold something. Her voice wavered, then steadied. She made them laugh. She made them listen. When she finished, there was a beat of stillness before the applause. Backstage, Knox met her with a look that wasn't just impressed. It was proud. "Told you," he said simply. "I didn't faint," she breathed. High bar, Quinn. That night, the hotel elevator was empty except for them. Ivy stood on one side, Knox on the other. The city lights flickered behind glass. A beat passed between them, heavier than air. Then he stepped closer. Slowly. Deliberately. She didn't move. His hand lifted slightly, hesitating near her cheek, his breath brushing hers. The moment stretched, like a rubber band drawn too tight. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Are we really doing this?" "I don't know," he murmured. "But I don't want to stop thinking about it." Their lips were inches apart when... Ding! The elevator jerked, lights flickering. The doors opened. A family of 4 stared at them, suitcases in tow. Knox stepped back fast. Ivy nearly tripped into the corner. The dad gave them a suspicious glance. The little girl asked loudly, were they about to kiss? Ivy groaned. "I want to die." Knox just chuckled, low and unhelpfully attractive. "Tomorrow's gala. Don't bail." The next day, Ivy had never worn anything like the dress Lena lent her. It was deep emerald silk, backless, soft as a whisper. She paired it with a pair of heels that belonged in a museum, not because they were expensive, but because no one should be expected to walk in them for more than 30 seconds. Knox saw her across the ballroom and actually stopped mid-sentence. "Is it too much?" she whispered when they met. He looked her up and down. "It's not enough. I might need a defibrillator." She snorted, nerves short-circuiting. They danced once. Talked little. Smiled too much. But just as she began to feel almost not out of place, snap! Her heel gave out. She grabbed the nearest champagne table for dear life, nearly sending flutes crashing. Muffled laughter around her. Eyes? Nope. Not tonight. Ivy limped out a side door before anyone could stop her. She found herself in a quiet rooftop garden, city lights shimmering all around. Her foot ached. Her pride throbbed more. Then came the soft thud of footsteps behind her. "Didn't peg you for a runner," Knox said. "Didn't peg you for a stalker." He smiled. Took off his suit jacket and draped it over her bare shoulders. "Thought you might need backup." She turned to him. Her voice cracked a little. "You really know how to show a girl a glamorous night. First lettuce, now orthopedic trauma." He stepped closer, slower this time. No interruptions. "Tie-day at the car window," he said quietly. "I thought you were the most chaotic person I'd ever seen." "Thanks. And then you opened your mouth. And I realized you might also be the bravest." They stood there in silence. Then, no more hesitating. He took her hand. Just that. Soft. Steady. They walked back to the ballroom together, her in one shoe, him keeping pace like it was perfectly normal. They danced once more, no words needed. And this time, the world didn't interrupt. Monday morning after the gala, the office looked the same. But everything felt different. Ivy stepped into the elevator and caught her reflection in the mirror-polished walls. Same blazer. Same laptop bag. But there was something in her eyes now, an alertness, a flicker of "what are we doing?" that hadn't been there before. The rooftop, The dance. His hand in hers. Nothing had been said, and yet everything had been said. And that was what scared her. The elevator dinged. Back to reality, Quinn. By lunch, she could feel it, the ripple effect. Lena cornered her near the coffee machine, with a look that screamed gossip. So, rumor is, you left the gala with someone special. Ivy tried to play dumb. You mean the guy who helped me limp away from the crime scene that was my heel? Please. That look he gave you on the dance floor. Straight out of a fanfic. The whole team noticed. Well, maybe they should notice their unpaid overtime instead, Ivy muttered. Is it true? Lena asked, tone softer. Ivy stared at her coffee like it held answers. I don't know what it is. The whispers kept coming. Soft at first. Then not so soft. She's definitely sleeping with the boss. No wonder she got fast-tracked. How convenient. Rookie gets a speaking slot and the CEO's jacket. Ivy pretended not to hear. But it stung. More than she expected. Worse? Knox hadn't spoken to her once since the gala. Not a glance in the hallway. Not a Slack message. Nothing. At first, she'd told herself it was professional. Necessary. But after 3 days of silence, it felt like avoidance. By Friday, she snapped. She caught him alone in the executive lounge, standing by the espresso machine like some caffeinated Greek statue. Seriously? She blurted, arms folded. You're just gonna ghost me now? Knox looked up, surprised but not apologetic. Ivy. It's not like that. Then what is it? Because we danced. We held hands. We had a moment, and now I'm back to being your employee and your shadow, apparently. He sighed, ran a hand through his hair. Do you think this is easy for me? Honestly, I don't know what you're thinking. You won't say anything. There was a pause. Then he said quietly, they're already talking, Ivy. And if this turns into something real? You're afraid it'll ruin my career? He nodded. And yours? Her chest tightened. So what's the solution? We pretend it didn't happen. He hesitated. That silence was louder than any answer. She stepped back. Got it. That night, Ivy lay awake in her tiny apartment, staring at the ceiling fan like it owed her explanations. She hated how much she felt. How fast it had all changed. How seen she'd felt in that rooftop garden, and how invisible she felt now. She scrolled through her phone. No messages from him. Only the note he'd once left, still pinned to her screen. You didn't ask. That's okay. K.W. She wanted to believe that was still true. But doubt had a louder voice now. The train ride to Boston was quiet, and Ivy was grateful for it. No knocks. No buzzing office. No whispers down hallways or cautious glances in elevators. Just her, a backpack, her tablet, and the creeping echo of everything unsaid. She'd been chosen as VibeTech's keynote speaker for the National Tech Inclusion Forum, a rising voice in honest branding, the internal email had called her. A year ago, she would have screamed. Now? She could barely summon a smile. It felt too much like escaping. And she didn't know if that made her weak or wise. The conference center in Boston was stunning, glass ceilings, glowing LED signage, and rows of clean booths manned by people far more caffeinated than she was. She shook hands, gave interviews, took selfies with startup kids who said she'd inspired their pitch decks. And yet, the emptiness hummed under every moment. She was doing great. And she hated that it still felt like something was missing. The morning of her keynote, she woke early. Got dressed in the navy jumpsuit Lena had helped her pick out. Her curls framed her face with a kind of deliberate effortlessly that only came from hours of trying not to look like you tried too hard. She took the stage. And she killed it. No script, just soul. She spoke about authenticity, about not being perfect, about how audiences no longer needed perfection, they needed connection. And how building a brand was like building trust in real life. Messy. Awkward. But worth it. The applause was deafening. But when the lights dimmed, and she returned to her empty hotel room, the silence returned. That evening, as she returned from a networking dinner, she found a white envelope slipped under her hotel room door. No name. Just her room number, written in clean, familiar strokes. She picked it up cautiously, heart thudding. Inside, a note. Handwritten. You were missed, KW. Her breath caught. She stared at the single sentence like it might grow more words if she just waited long enough. KW. Her fingers grazed the paper like it might answer the questions still echoing inside her. Why now? Why not say more? But she didn't rip it up. Didn't throw it away. She folded it carefully. Slipped it into her journal. And stared at the ceiling with a feeling that didn't have a name yet. Only that she still wanted to know what it could have been. 2 days after Boston, Ivy returned to the office. She walked in with purpose. Or at least, she tried to fake it. But her mind was still looping that note like a half-played song. You were missed, KW. Who the hell signs something K.W? Her desk was covered in post-its, congratulations, memes, even a tiny doodle of her face with a speech bubble that said messy, awkward, but worth it. She laughed. Then sighed. Still no knocks. But just before noon, Lena leaned over the divider and whispered, you have a meeting. Conference room D, 10 minutes. With who? Didn't say. But you might want to put on lip gloss. Or war paint. Depending on your vibe. Ivy entered conference room D with the tension of someone walking into a trap. Or a date. Or both. Knox was already there. No laptop. No files. Just him. Close the door. He said quietly. She hesitated, then did. The silence between them was dense, like the air had thickened to keep them apart. So, she started, arms folded. Are we circling back to the part where you bailed right after one of the most emotionally confusing nights of my life? Knox exhaled. You deserved clarity. I just wasn't ready to give it to you. And now? He looked up at her. Not as a CEO. Not as her boss. Just him. Now I'm tired of pretending this is just work. She swallowed. Her voice came softer than she intended. Then what is it? He stood, slow, careful like she might bolt. It's you. It's always been you. Ever since you made a fool of yourself in front of my car, and didn't apologize for being real. She laughed once, sharp and wounded. You say that, but you're the one who pulled away. You let everyone else's voices drown out mine. Because I was scared, he said, stepping closer. I didn't want to be the reason you stopped being seen for your work. For your brilliance. I didn't want to be the man who turned your story into a footnote. You think I'm not scared? She whispered. You think I haven't spent every day wondering if I'm here because I'm good, or because I looked at you too long on a rooftop? They stood there, breathing in the weight of it all. Then she added, more quietly, but the truth is, I missed you, too. Knox reached into his pocket and pulled out something small. A napkin. From Marlowe's. On it, scrawled in smudged black ink. "If this ever gets real, tell her before she runs." "I wrote this the night we had dinner," he said. "And then I didn't listen to myself." Ivy stepped forward, inches from him now. "You're listening now. Every word." And then, finally, he touched her face. She didn't pull away. Their kiss was soft. Hesitant at first, then deeper. Not perfect, not polished, just two people choosing to stop running. When they pulled apart, she whispered against his lips. "So, how do we do this?" Knox smiled. Slowly. Honestly. Maybe a little awkwardly. She grinned. "That's my brand." Falling in love didn't hit Ivy like a lightning bolt. It came quietly. Like the way Knox knocked, once, then twice, before entering her world more fully. Or how his texts shifted from clipped directives to "how's your day?" Then wanna make terrible pasta together. Their first real date wasn't champagne or skyline views. It was soup. She showed up at his apartment on a rainy Thursday with a bag of mismatched groceries and the confidence of someone who had once set oatmeal on fire. "You cook?" he asked, eyeing that zucchini like it had personally wronged him. "I improvise," she said, dropping a sad bunch of basil on his counter. "This is going to end in fire or flavor." "Both." "I'm ambitious." They bickered over seasoning. Salt is not a personality, Knox. And spilled half a jar of crushed tomatoes on his designer kitchen rug. But they laughed, full, unfiltered laughter that curled into the corners of the room and stayed there long after the soup was finished. When she leaned back on his couch later, barefoot and tomato-stained, he handed her a glass of wine and whispered, "I like this." She smiled. "Me too." Weekends became quiet rituals. Movie marathons with too much popcorn. Walks through the park where he learned she talked to dogs like they were people, and she learned he cried, just a little, at Pixar films. One Sunday, she looked up from tying her shoelaces and caught him staring. "What?" "Nothing." He smiled. "Just glad you're here." At work, they kept it subtle. No stolen kisses or suspicious glances. But on Ivy's desk, post-it notes started appearing. Bright yellow squares with ridiculous scribbles. "Don't forget to breathe today. You're the only person I'd let roast my marketing strategy. FYI, you talk to yourself when you focus. It's adorable. Please continue." Sometimes they weren't words at all. Just doodles of dancing lettuce leaves, or a badly drawn bra labeled legendary support. She left replies, hidden in files or taped to the inside of his coffee cabinet. "Stop looking at me during meetings. I blush weird." "No, I didn't eat your protein bar." "Okay, maybe half." "You're annoying." "I like it." They didn't label it. Didn't define it. But each note, each walk, each shared spoonful of something too spicy or too sweet was proof. Something real was growing. Not perfect, but perfectly theirs. The cabin was tucked deep in the woods, 2 hours outside the city. Ivy leaned her head against the window of Knox's car as they drove, letting trees blur into golden smears. Autumn had arrived early this year, and the leaves were putting on a show, amber, crimson, rust. "This place real? Or are you luring me into a horror movie plot?" she asked, half asleep. Knox smirked. "Depends. Do horror movies usually involve s'mores and matching flannel?" "God, I hope not." The cabin was small, warm, filled with books and creaky floorboards and windows that opened straight into sky. They spent the evening wrapped in blankets by the fire, playing card games that Ivy kept losing spectacularly at. "You're stacking the deck," she accused, eyes narrowing. "I don't need to. You fold like a scared raccoon. I'm a charming raccoon. Irresistible." That night, Knox barely slept. He kept turning the tiny velvet box over and over in his palm beneath the covers, the metal cool against his skin. The next morning, he woke her early, too early. What kind of maniac wants to be on a lake at sunrise? She groaned, tugging the blanket over her face. "The romantic kind," he said, already lacing up his boots. "And maybe a little dramatic." 15 minutes later, she was sitting barefoot in a wooden rowboat, wrapped in his hoodie, floating across glass-still water that mirrored the sky. Everything was quiet. Just the gentle splash of oars. The breath of trees. Then he stopped rowing. Let the boat drift. "Hey," he said softly. She looked over and saw him holding the ring. Not flashy. Not massive. Just simple. Classic. Honest. Like the man holding it. "I don't want perfect," he said, voice catching just a little. "I want real. I want every messy, brilliant, stubborn part of you. The girl who fixed her bra in front of my car window. The woman who keeps post-it notes in my soul." She froze. Her heart did one full flip. He continued, eyes steady. "So, will you marry me?" She didn't blink. Didn't breathe. Just whispered, "Yes. God, yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger. Then she lunged across the tiny boat, nearly tipping them both into the lake, and kissed him breathless. They sat there for a long time. Arms tangled. Water lapping. Just them and the trees, and 1,000 kinds of quiet happiness. The wedding was small, just 50 people, barefoot on warm sand, with lanterns swaying in the ocean breeze. Ivy wore a dress she found on Etsy after 4 glasses of wine. It was soft, flowing, and probably not what bridal magazines would have approved of. But it was hers. And when Knox saw her walking down the sandy aisle, bouquet in hand, eyes shining under the sunset, he forgot how to breathe. Lena officiated, of course. Wearing a white jumpsuit and dramatic sunglasses. "We're gathered here to celebrate the 2 most unlikely co-workers turned soulmates this office has ever produced," she began. "And yes, I brought tissues. Fight me." As Ivy walked, people started to notice the small silver keychain dangling from her bouquet. It read, "Warning, may contain lettuce and feelings." She caught Knox's eye, smirked. He shook his head slowly, grinning. "Of course you did." When it came time for vows, Knox cleared his throat and looked at her like no one else existed. "I don't have the perfect words," he said. "But I have this promise. I'll never stop choosing you. Not when we disagree. Not when things get messy. And especially not on the hard days." Then he took a breath. "I promise to always make you laugh, even on the worst days." Ivy blinked hard, trying not to cry through her smile. Her voice shook, but her words didn't. "I promise to keep surprising you. To tell you the truth, even when it's awkward. To show up with soup and sarcasm whenever life gets weird. And I promise, no matter what, we'll never go back to pretending this is just work." The crowd clapped, some cheered, a few cried. They kissed. Barefoot in the sand, letters keychain sparkling in the sunset. Weeks later, Knox walked into his apartment after a long board meeting. He loosened his tie, dropped his keys, and paused. Sitting on the kitchen counter was a neatly folded grey t-shirt. Across the front, in bold letters, "Dad in training." His heart stopped. Then he saw her, Ivy, standing by the fridge, eyes wide and nervous. Surprise, she whispered. He stared at her. Then at the shirt. Then at her again. Are you serious? She nodded, biting her lip. Very. He crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled her into a breathless hug. I didn't think I could feel more in love with you, he murmured into her hair. But apparently, I can. She laughed, teary-eyed. We're going to be chaotic parents, huh? Legendary. Later that night, they lay on the couch, his hand resting over her stomach, her head tucked under his chin. Outside, the city pulsed with noise. Inside, it was quiet. Soft. Real. Perfect. They never made a big announcement. No viral engagement posts. No dramatic gender reveals. No look at us highlight reels. Just small things. Sticky notes still passed across desks. Dinners with burnt garlic bread and belly laughs. A bassinet by the window that smelled faintly of lavender. And a love that grew, not from grand gestures, but from choosing each other, every messy day. Because in the end, it was never about perfection. It was about presence. It was the girl who once used a car window as a mirror, and the man inside who didn't look away. It was the job she almost didn't get. The elevator kiss that almost happened. The soup, the sand, the silence that spoke louder than words. Somewhere in a drawer at home, she kept the letters keychain. Not because it was beautiful, but because it reminded her. Sometimes, the most awkward moments are just the beginning of something extraordinary. Happiness doesn't always knock. Sometimes, it crash lands in the most embarrassing, unexpected ways. You are never too small to do something big. Not too messy. Not too late. And real love. It's not perfect. It's not filtered. It's the person who stays, even when you've got lettuce in your teeth and doubt in your heart.